Hi and welcome to this presentation with Tethys Oil. My name is Sandra Nordlöf and I am an equity analyst here at ABG. With us here today we have Stefan Pedersen, responsible for investor relations at Tethys Oil. Stefan, welcome here and feel free to begin your presentation.
Thank you. Yes, like you just heard, my name is Stefan Pedersen and I deal with investor relations at Tethys Oil. I'm standing in for Peter today because he had a situation with a cold and we don't want to take any chances. So for everyone's pleasure, I'm here instead. To talk a little bit about who we are and what we do, we can say that we are a self-funded oil company, which basically means that we are debt-free. We create our value through production, and in the short term and in the long term, we do it by exploration, appraisal activities. We do all of this in Oman, and you can sort of see how our business model looks down here below, where we start with exploration and we go on, and then we do appraisal activities to later on development and production. We were founded in 2001, and you could say that our main operations has been going on since 2006, because since then we have been in Oman, where we make most of our production in blocks 3 and 4, or all of our production, basically speaking. But we're not going to get stuck on this. To many, we are looked upon as a dividends company. I will talk a little bit about why that is partly true and partly why it's not true as well. But as you can see, we have had a massive increase in the numbers of shareholders over the years. And just now on December 1st, we were also one of the most 100 traded companies on Nasdaq. So we have become more and more popular, even though the stock price perhaps doesn't show this as much as we would like. And on the dividend part, obviously, as you can see, since 2017 or 2018, we have had 2 kronor in regular dividend every year. And later on, we have also added our extraordinary distribution in terms of share redemption programs. In total, this has been, for the year, as you can see, over $20 million just this year. And then that, of course, does not include our share buyback programs. And since 2015, that was the first year of dividend, we have distributed over 1.2 billion Swedish kronor. So we are pretty pleased with that part, and I think in many ways that it almost speaks for itself. If you look in the total return, as you can see, in the past 2 years, and that's literally the past 2 years, it's been 70%. If we would, go a little bit further back in time, then it would be almost 100. So, historically speaking, at least, we can say that we think that we have been a pretty good investment. Our shareholders are, as you can see here, we don't have a lot of major institutions. That is perhaps, one could argue, a problem with the Swedish oil companies, that we tend not to get the big banks and stuff like that. But as you mentioned, we have increased by several thousand. I think we're some 40% number of shareholders up just this year, and we're somewhat happy with this, even though, obviously speaking, in some terms, we would like some bigger investors as well. But to get back to perhaps to the little bit more interesting parts, where are we in the world? Primarily we are doing our business in Oman, in the Arabian Peninsula. We have been here since 2006, and we have steadily increased our land area, at least. Our main production blocks are up here on 3 and 4, and our explorations blocks are here on 49, 58, and 56. And we're going to talk a little bit more about them in detail as we go along. And like we said, main production is roughly here in the borders of 3 and 4. So far, it has produced over 120 million barrels of oil for us. We still have quite a bit of exploration and appraisal activities in these blocks. So we are looking for on the future. We consider it quite promising. Currently, most of our own operations are conducted over here in 56 and 58, which are both very interesting exploration blocks. We have a number of leads and a number of interesting opportunities here. Right now, we are in which we will come to, actually. Let me talk a little bit just about what we have been doing in the recent months, and then we will look at how this fits into perhaps the bigger picture. This year, as I mentioned, especially the operations has been conducted on Block 56 and 58, and these are exploration activities. We have drilled a number of new exciting appraisal wells, and that is especially Aljumd 2, 3, and 4 on Block 56. And we are just about ready to start our test production on this block. I don't dare say an exact date for that, when it will start, but it is in the near future. On Block 58, we as well have a lot of exploration activities, especially regarding like seismic acquisition and interpretation. And we could put it like this, that these findings so far has increased the way we look at the block. Obviously, it's still slightly early days, but we are cautiously positive to what's happening here. On the production side, obviously, it hasn't been as good as we had hoped for in these past years. We're going to get a little bit more into this, but it has been a slight decline in production this year. And for the full year, we are now have guidance for 10,000 barrels. One of the key things that we have done over the year, obviously, is as well to, in different way, counteract this decreased production. In part, thanks obviously to high oil prices, our earnings are incredibly strong, and so is, I would argue, our cash flow as well, even though it might not look like it because we invest a lot of money. But so in a little bit more detail then about why we think this is a very interesting block on Block 56 is we have 2 areas here that we are primarily conducting in. We are further along in Aljumd, which to some is perhaps they wonder a little bit why, because we have actually put a higher figure on the central area. But generally speaking, this has just been the workflow that we're working with. The most exciting thing about this in the short term is obviously our appraisal program ongoing on the block. And we now have 3 wells. We are pretty much set to start test production on these wells. So, but there are still just a few minor, mostly regulatory and administration kind of things that is just tweaking on. But don't let that word frighten you. It's not a big thing, but it's just some paperwork basically that needs to be done. For the time being, we are still aiming at somewhere around the 700 barrels per day for this test production, at least initially. But again, we will see a little bit about where we end up here. Okay, and then production, which is obviously something that most people are concerned about, because basically this is where our income comes from. But what we can say is that, this year has not been exactly the way we would like it to be. It's been quite a lot lower. We guided for about 11,000 barrels per day at the start of the year, and now we are at approximately 10,000. And this is in part due to the lower investments we saw during the years of COVID, but also a decline in investments in the year previous to COVID as well. So, and now that the industry is sort of waking up again, we see a certain amount of bottlenecks in regards to getting equipment to get things going again, so to speak. So, and despite perhaps as what many people would hope for, it's not quite as easy as to just push a button and then get production ramped up. So it's an ongoing process. And obviously we have invested quite a lot this year in all of this. And perhaps the most significant part for the none too initiated is the fact that we just recently increased our number of drilling rigs from 3 to 4. So we are quite confident that we will be able to drill more new wells in the coming months. So but besides the production part of things, we still consider blocks 3 and 4 to have a lot of future potential as well. So we still have an enormous seismic acquisition program down here in the south, where we hope that we will obviously find some quite interesting things, but also in our previously operated active areas. On block 58, yeah, it's one of the it's a very exciting block, we would argue. We have 2 potential areas where we are active right now, and it's South Lahan and Fahad. We are currently in the exploration part for both of this, and we are going to drill in 2023 on block 58 as well. The current process is what we would call the desktop operations, basically. Like it's studying, you could argue, of all the data that we have accumulated so far, and we think that this so far has been quite positive. Obviously speaking, we are still at least 6 months from starting any type of drilling operations here, but so far the data has reinforced the way we look at it. Block 49, this is we have not given up on block 49 by any means. For those who know it, we drilled here in 2021 in Thamin 1. We didn't find we didn't get any oil flow to the surface for this, but we're still considering some unconventional methods here to be. But we've increased the amount of time we have basically for this. So it's no real stress, and it's a slightly less active area right now than blocks 58 and 56, obviously, because we still consider those to be our main exploration blocks. In terms of the financial highlights for the recent year, they almost speak for themselves. It's quite easy to talk about this. Obviously, we have had a great push from the oil price. We can't deny that, but we still sort of like this graph in terms of what it shows. We have a lot of income right now, and when we managed also to get that to the bottom line. So, but at the same time, and this is perhaps what I wanted to lift at, we're not just dividend. We invest quite a lot, and we have invested over 64 million so far this year. We're aiming at in the 84 million area in total for the year. And that is more than 2020 and 2021 combined. So it's a high level of investments we're going through right now. But despite that, we generally speaking have a positive free cash flow. So it's it hasn't affected us too much. The dividend so far this year, or distribution so far this year, 23 millions. And to date, or until Friday at least, we have bought back so far about 190,000 shares. And despite that, we have roughly 40 million in the bank. So we have a very strong position to go forward from. I'm not going to get too stuck on the financial parts. Generally speaking, I think that the overview explains it quite a lot. But if we just look at the graphs, we can basically say that they are all positive right now, going steadily up. Obviously, we will see, or we know that the oil price has gone back a little bit, and that will most likely have an effect on us as well. But generally speaking, we have a very positive trend. And this goes obviously for the cash flow from operation as well. I've already been through this, but what might be interesting to see here is especially where we are investing our money. So we have, this is block 3 and 4. So this, you could argue, is just on the production side, and the blocks above are our exploration blocks. But as you can steadily see, those as well have been quite high over the past year. We think that we are past the peak of investment on these blocks, and now can perhaps start a little bit more exciting news kind of action in terms of drilling, and hopefully in the near future also some initial updates from the test production. Generally speaking, we have a decent or quite strong cash flow. Quarterly one is basically affected by dividend. That's why that looks a little bit harsher, but in general, this is good. So before we go into questions, we just want to take a brief outlook and summary of where we're at. And like I said before, the most exciting thing in the near future is, of course, our extended well test on Algeriet. Our goal is to start this in the next couple of weeks, but give or take a few weeks from that. But it's very close. We have seen the peak in exploration spending, and going forward, like I mentioned, we will have some more interesting news than just Capex. But we are quite excited about Capex as well, because without Capex, there will be no future news. So, but with that being said, I think I just about made it to the 20-minute mark. So I will let the questions begin.
Perfect. Thank you for your presentation. So let's start with the exciting developments at Algeriet discovery. You mentioned here that the tests are weeks away. So soon we will perhaps start hearing some new news flows or something from this. So this is really my question. What can we expect in terms of updates and news flows connected to the development of the discovery?
I mean, the initial news will obviously be that it has started. That is where it will begin. In terms of how we will update, it depends basically on how the test is going, I would argue. Like, if there is any major inconsistencies from what we expected, then obviously we will update about that. But generally speaking, this is a test that goes on for quite a few months, and we are using that amount of time for a reason, so to speak. But if any development occurs that's basically not what we expect, then yeah, obviously we will have to update about it.
Okay, perfect. And then if we talk a bit about the disruptions that you have been talking about already and that has been occurring during the year, they have been especially connected to operational challenges, and you do mention that you are working on solving the bottlenecks looking forward. You mentioned at the Q3 numbers that in 2023 you are expecting production growth again. Do you want to comment any further on this and what the actual activities that you are performing right now are more about?
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, the activities on 3 and 4 on the production side is, you could divide it into two parts, perhaps we could argue. One is that we want to increase the drilling going, basically. And this is where the additional drilling rig comes in. But also, like in terms of the bottlenecks that we're talking about, those are different kind of bottlenecks. There are bottlenecks that has occurred due to decreased investments previously, so that we are now seeing the effect of, and there are bottlenecks in getting things going again, so to speak. So it's different kind of activities on these two, like depending on what it is. The previous lack of investment, in some ways it's about just increasing investment again to get it back, to catch up. Sometimes we call it the catch-up program, and to a certain extent that is a good phrase, because it is about regaining. But in terms of like what production will end up on, we can't say at this point. We are currently, I mean, obviously the goal is for this to have effect, but figures at this point would be dubious for me to say, honestly. We will release our guidance in February, somewhere before our year-end report for the coming year. So by then we will know more.
Okay, thank you. And we have been talking here today about both buybacks and dividends and all of these shareholder distributions. Do you want to comment any further on your allocation strategy here when it comes to, well, comparing then CapEx and future development compared to the distributions?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, like this, in terms of how we distribute cash to our owners, these are just different methods to reach the same result, basically. And in terms of the share buyback program, a lot of people wonder about this, but it's just one tool, basically. We don't have a set goal. This is, we should buy back this amount of share. It's a lot of things that we consider when we talk about this, or when we buy them back. The share price, obviously, but it's still also about like short-term cash, long-term cash, what we need it for in the near future, and what we expect to get in. So there's a lot of things to consider in terms of that. And in terms of dividend and you know, it's for the board to say, but we still have a very strong cash balance, generally speaking. So it's not something that we are worried about, but especially for this year, like, yes, it has been a lot of capex, and what I can sometimes feel it's not being pushed enough. It's like we invest in this because we believe in it, not just for the heck of it, so to speak. Okay.
Continuing a bit on that note, you do mention that you have a very strong balance sheet and a very strong cash position. Is this a level, the level that you are currently having? I think it's about 13 Swedish crowns per share in cash. Is this a level that we can assume that you will continue holding looking forward, or are there room for even further distributions, or?
You mean if we will keep the amount of cash?
Yeah, the cash level that you have currently.
Well, yes, in a way. Obviously, that's what I mean. It's a cash-intensive industry in many ways. We're in, like, we are a fairly small company, and cash at hand is a great value in both short and long-term situations. So, but with that being said, like dividends will keep coming, if I put it like that. But I can't say anything about the exact level for next year. In the year-end report, we will do, which is February 7th, I think, we will discuss that a little bit more. But in terms of, for the moment, we are in luck, so to speak, that our cash flow is very strong. So for the time being, dividend and capex has not been an issue. And like we pointed out here, in some ways we are past the peak capex. So going forward, we should see slightly less on that end. So yeah, in balance, a little bit more cash flow perhaps.
Okay, perfect. So just to finish up, what would you say will be the main happenings during next year for you?
Basically the thing on this slide, actually. No, but I mean, we are very excited about our exploration blocks because those are the news, so to speak. In terms of production, we will aim at stabilized production. That's basically it. But that is perhaps not the most exciting things to say. But the exciting things are obviously the test program on Block 56, but also obviously to see what the exploration drilling in both the central area of 56 and on 58 will show. So I think those are the exciting things for people to look out for. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for coming here and presenting, and thank for all of you who listened in. Thank you.